The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. They controlled everything. They decided which species could travel between worlds. They chose who could build colonies and who could not. And they enforced one law above all others: the Threshold Doctrine. The Threshold Doctrine was simple and cruel. Every species was given a border, a line in space they could never cross. If any species tried to expand beyond their assigned territory, the Council would destroy them, not punish them, not warn them, destroy them completely. This had happened many times before. Entire civilizations had been burned to nothing. Because they dared to reach for more stars than the Council allowed, the Council believed this kept order in the galaxy. They believed fear was the only way to maintain peace. And for 12,000 years, they had been right. No species challenged them. No species dared. Then humanity arrived. Humans had only been traveling among the stars for 3,000 years. They were young. They were small. They controlled just a handful of worlds in a quiet corner of the galaxy. The Council looked at them and saw nothing worth fearing. Humans had no great warships. They had no planet-killing weapons. They were like children playing in the shadows of giants. But humans had one quality the Council did not understand. They did not accept limits. They did not bow to rules they had not agreed to. And they never, ever forgot when someone hurt them. Ambassador Yellen Vasquez stood in the center of the Council's great chamber. The room was enormous, built from black stone that seemed to swallow light. 17 species sat in judgment above her, their representatives arranged in a half-circle of floating platforms. The Vortani High Arbiter sat highest of all. His body was made of living crystal. He glowed with a cold blue light that made the air around him shimmer. Vasquez was not afraid. She had prepared for this moment for years. She had practiced her arguments. She had gathered her evidence. She believed that reason could convince even the Council to see justice. She was about to learn how wrong she was. "Honored representatives," Vasquez said, her voice steady and clear, "humanity comes before you with a simple request. 300 years ago, we discovered the Andara Corridor. It was a dead place. 40 star systems with no life, no resources, nothing but empty rocks and cold gas giants." She paused, letting her words settle over the chamber. "We asked no one's permission because there was nothing there to claim. We spent 3 centuries transforming those dead worlds. We built atmosphere processors. We seeded oceans. We planted forests. We created life where none existed. 18 million humans now call the Andara Corridor home. They have built cities and farms and schools. They have raised children who have never known any other world." The Vortani High Arbiter made a sound like breaking glass. It was his species' way of showing impatience. "We are aware of your illegal expansion," he said. "That is why you stand before us today. Not to request. To answer for your crimes." Vasquez felt a chill run through her body, but she did not let it show on her face. "Crimes?" she asked. "We settled empty worlds. Worlds that no one wanted. Worlds that we made valuable through our own labor. How can that be a crime?" "The Threshold Doctrine does not care about your labor," the Arbiter replied. "It cares only about boundaries. Your species was assigned 12 star systems. You now occupy 52? This is a violation. The penalty is clear." Vasquez opened her mouth to argue further, but something strange happened. Her communication device went silent. The small implant behind her ear, which connected her to Earth's quantum network, suddenly felt dead, cold, empty. She touched her ear without thinking. What? The Arbiter's crystal body pulsed with brighter light. "The sentence has already been carried out." Vasquez did not understand. She could not understand. Her mind refused to accept what he was saying. "New Harmony was the largest of your illegal colonies," the Arbiter continued, his voice showing no emotion at all. 18 million humans resided there. Our purification fleet arrived in orbit 6 hours ago. The cleansing took 12 minutes. The world is now clean." The chamber was completely silent. Vasquez stood frozen, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. "My daughter," she whispered. My daughter lives on New Harmony. Lived, the Arbiter corrected. Your emotional attachment to the deceased is noted but irrelevant. The threshold doctrine has been enforced. Humanity's remaining worlds will be monitored to ensure future compliance. You may return to your species and inform them that further violations will result in complete extinction. Something broke inside Yellen Vasquez in that moment. Something that had been holding her together simply shattered. But what emerged from that breaking was not grief, not despair. It was something much colder, much more dangerous. She looked up at the Arbiter. Her eyes were dry. Her hands were steady. You have made a mistake that cannot be unmade, she said. The Arbiter laughed. The sound echoed through the chamber like shattering ice. A threat? From you? Your species has no fleet capable of challenging even our smallest patrol vessels. You have no weapons that could scratch the hull of a purification cruiser. What exactly do you imagine you can do? Vasquez said nothing. She simply stared at him with those cold, steady eyes. The Arbiter gestured with one crystalline limb. Return to your world, human. Teach your people to accept their place. You are small. You are weak. You exist because we allow it. Remember this. Vasquez turned and walked out of the chamber. She did not look back. She did not cry. She did not scream or beg or threaten again. She simply walked away in silence. The council representatives watched her go with amusement. They had seen this before. Grief made species quiet before it made them compliant. In a year or two, humanity would be just another obedient servant race. Too afraid to ever challenge the council again, they did not understand what they were seeing. They did not recognize the look in Vasquez's eyes. It was not the look of someone accepting defeat. It was the look of someone who had just declared a war that would span decades. A war that would be fought not with fleets and weapons, but with patience and shadows, and a hatred so deep it had become perfectly calm. The Galactic Council had ruled through fear for 12,000 years. They had never once considered that they might someday feel that same fear themselves. They were about to learn. 6 months passed after the destruction of New Harmony. The Council expected humanity to mourn, to rebuild their broken spirit, and to quietly accept their place in the galaxy. They expected silence born from fear. They got silence. But it was not the silence of fear. It was the silence of something hunting. The first sign came when a Vertani patrol vessel vanished near the edge of human space. The ship was called the Crystalline Dawn, and it carried a crew of 300. One moment it was transmitting its regular status report. The next moment, there was nothing. No distress signal, no debris, no explanation. The council sent investigators. They found nothing. The Crystalline Dawn had simply stopped existing. They assumed it was an accident, a reactor failure, perhaps. These things happened sometimes, even to the mighty Vortani fleet. Then a second ship disappeared, and a third, and a fourth. Within 3 months, 17 council vessels had vanished without a trace. Supply convoys evaporated between relay points. Scout ships went silent mid-patrol. A purification cruiser, the same class of vessel that had burned New Harmony, was found drifting above Earth's moon. Its hull was untouched. Its weapons were still loaded, but every member of its crew was dead. Neural implants fused into melted slag inside their skulls. Admiral Chen Weilin watched the reports from her command. Chair aboard the Whisper. The ship did not officially exist. Its crew had all been declared dead in various accidents over the past 5 years. They were ghosts serving on a ghost ship, fighting a ghost war. 17 confirmed kills, her tactical officer reported. The Council has pulled all patrol vessels back from human-adjacent space. They are afraid to come near us. Chen nodded slowly. She was a small woman with gray streaks in her black hair and eyes that had seen too much death. Before New Harmony, she had been a diplomat's bodyguard. Now she commanded the most dangerous fleet humanity had ever built. It is not enough, she said. Fear fades. We need them to understand that nowhere is safe. Not their border territories. Not their core systems. Not their homeworlds. We need to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. This was the heart of what humanity called the Revenant Protocol. They had not spent the past 6 months building warships. They did not have the resources or time for that kind of conventional warfare. Instead, they had focused on something the Council had never encountered: asymmetric terror. Human engineers had captured Council ships and torn them apart piece by piece. They learned every secret of Council technology. They cracked their encryption codes. They mapped their communication networks. They discovered how to make human vessels invisible to Council sensors. But more importantly, they studied Council psychology. They learned what frightened each species. They understood how to break the confidence of beings who had never known true fear. The Vortani valued order above all else. So humanity created chaos. Ships appearing and disappearing at random, messages that appeared in secure systems, messages that should have been impossible to send. A simple phrase repeated over and over: remember, new harmony. The Kreth were proud warriors who believed in honorable combat, so humanity never gave them a battle. Human operatives infiltrated Kreth stations and simply watched. They did nothing. They harmed no one, but they left evidence of their presence: a moved object, a door left open, footprints in dust. The Kreth began to see enemies everywhere. They turned on each other, convinced that spies walked among them. The Messian were traders who worshipped profit. So humanity began disrupting their shipping lanes. Not destroying cargo, simply moving it. A shipment meant for one world would arrive at another. Contracts failed. Customers grew angry. The Messian economy trembled as trust in their logistics collapsed. Admiral Chen understood something that the Council did not. War was not about destroying your enemy. War was about breaking their will to fight. And humanity had become very good at breaking wills. Ambassador Vasquez appeared before the Council again, 6 months after her daughter's death. But this time, she did not appear in person. She was a hologram, projected from a location no Council sensor could trace. The Vortani High Arbiter looked at her. Flickering image was something that might have been anger or might have been fear. Species has been attacking our vessels, he accused. Vasquez tilted her head slightly. Her face showed nothing. No anger, no grief, no satisfaction. She had become as cold as the void between stars. I do not know what you mean, she said. Humanity has no fleet capable of challenging Council vessels. You told me this yourself. Perhaps you should investigate your own internal security. Perhaps there are problems within your alliance that you have not noticed. The Arbiter's crystal body pulsed with dark light. Do not play games with us. We know humanity is responsible, do you? Vasquez asked. Prove it. And that was the terrible truth that the Council was beginning to understand. They could not prove anything. Human attacks left no evidence. Human operatives left no survivors to give testimony. Human ships vanished like morning mist whenever Council forces arrived. The Council had built their power on fear. They had spent 12,000 years teaching the galaxy to be afraid of them now, for the first time. They were beginning to understand what it felt like when fear pointed the other way, the Arbiter. Dismissed Vasquez's hologram with an angry gesture. He turned to his fellow Council members, seeking reassurance. But what he saw in their faces offered no comfort. The Messian representative was calculating losses. The Kreth representative was looking over his shoulder. The lesser species, the ones who had always been too afraid to speak, were whispering among themselves. The Council had ruled by making others afraid. But fear was a weapon that anyone could learn to use, and humanity had just proven themselves to be very quick learners. Dr. Amara. Conquo had never considered herself a soldier. She was a researcher, a scholar, a woman who had spent her life studying the history and politics of alien civilizations. She had learned 17 languages. She had read thousands of years of Council records. She understood how the galaxy worked better than almost anyone alive. Now she was going to use that. Knowledge is a weapon. Her laboratory was hidden in an asteroid deep within human space. 50 of the brightest human minds worked alongside her, picking apart every piece of Council data that the Revenant Protocol had stolen from captured vessels. They had found something extraordinary buried in those files. something the Council had worked very hard to hide. The truth. The Galactic Council presented itself as a fair alliance of equal species. They claimed to maintain peace and order for the benefit of all. They spoke of cooperation and mutual protection. It was all lies. The Council's secret archives told a very different story. They revealed 12,000 years of manipulation, theft, and planned genocide. Every species in the Council had been controlled, weakened, and exploited, and none of them knew it. Okonkwo held up a data crystal during a meeting with Admiral Chen and Ambassador Vasquez. The crystal was small enough to fit in her palm, but it contained enough information to shatter an empire. The Kreth hegemony, she said. They believe they joined the Council voluntarily 2,000 years ago. The truth is that the Vortani engineered a plague that killed 40% of their population. The cure was offered in exchange for Kreth membership and military service. She set down the crystal and picked up another. The Sela Collective. Their homeworld sits on the largest deposit of quantum crystals in the galaxy. The Council's records show that the Vortani secretly sold mining rights to themselves 3 centuries ago. The Sela receive nothing. Their resources are being stolen while they believe they are equal partners. A third crystal. The Messian Trade Federation. 200 years ago, their economy collapsed. They have always believed it was natural market forces. But the archives showed that the Vortani deliberately destabilized their currency to force them into economic dependence. Vasquez studied the crystals with cold eyes. The grief that had once threatened to consume her had long since frozen into something harder than diamond. "How do we use this?" she asked. "We do not use it," Okonkwo replied. "We simply give it away. Every species in the Council will receive their own files. They will learn exactly how they have been manipulated. They will discover what the Vortani really think of them." Admiral Chen nodded slowly. "We turn them against each other. We do not have to destroy the Council ourselves. We just have to show them who their real enemy is." The distribution was elegant in its simplicity. Human operatives had spent months placing hidden transmitters throughout Council space. On a single day, at a single moment. Every species received a flood of information that they could not ignore. The Kreth discovered the truth about their plague. Warriors who had proudly served the Council for 2,000 years suddenly understood that their loyalty was built on murdered ancestors. The Sila learned that their sacred homeworld was being robbed. The resources they had shared with the galaxy were actually being stolen from them. The Messian found proof that their economic suffering was not bad luck, but deliberate sabotage. Generations of poverty and struggle had been engineered by the very allies they trusted, and there was more. So much more. Every species had secrets hidden in those archives. Every species had been betrayed. The reaction was immediate and violent. The delegation stormed out of the Council chamber, demanding explanations that the Vortani could not give. The Sila recalled their ambassadors and closed their borders. The Messian began auditing every trade agreement they had ever signed. Within 3 months, 3 species had formally withdrawn from the Council. 7 others demanded emergency sessions to investigate the leaked information. The alliance that had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years was cracking like ice in the sun. The Vortani High Arbiter tried to restore order the only way he knew how. He threatened military action against any species that tried to leave. He ordered the Purification Fleet to take up positions near rebellious homeworlds. This was a mistake. During a protest action by the Kreth, Vortani commander panicked and opened fire on a diplomatic vessel. The attack killed 200 Kreth, including 3 members of their ruling council. The Kreth did not negotiate. They did not demand apologies. They simply began preparing for war. Ambassador Vasquez watched the chaos unfold from her hidden station. Far from Council space, she had not slept properly in over a year. She had not smiled since the day her daughter died. But she felt something now. Not satisfaction, not joy. Just a cold recognition that the plan was working. Humanity had not fired a single shot in open combat. They had not destroyed a single Council homeworld. They had simply shown the galaxy the truth and let the weight of 12,000 years of lies do the rest. The Council was destroying itself, Dr. Okonkwo joined Vasquez at the observation window. They watched the distant stars together in silence. Was it worth it? Okonkwo finally asked. Everything we have done, everything we have become. Was it worth the cost? Vasquez did not answer for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Ask me when it is finished, she said. Ask me when every species that sat in judgment while my daughter burned has learned what it means to lose everything they trusted. Then I will tell you if it was worth it. Okonkwo looked at the ambassador's cold eyes and said nothing more. There was nothing left to say. The galaxy was on fire, and humanity was only beginning to add fuel to the flames. The Vortani High Arbiter stood alone in his private chamber, watching the galaxy burn. Reports flooded in from every corner of Council space. The Kreth were mobilizing their fleets. The Sela had expelled all Vortani citizens from their territory. The Messian were demanding reparations that would bankrupt the Council treasury. Everything was falling apart. And at the center of this chaos, like a spider at the heart of a shattered web, sat humanity, small, quiet, waiting. The Arbiter had underestimated them. He could admit this now in the privacy of his own thoughts. He had looked at their tiny fleet and their young civilization and seen nothing worth fearing. He had not understood that war could be fought with information and patience, instead of ships and weapons. But the Arbiter was not defeated. He still had one option left. One weapon so terrible that it had only been used twice in the entire history of the galaxy. The Celestial Lance. It was an ancient device, built by a species that no longer existed. The Council had found it drifting in dead space 1,000 years ago and claimed it as their ultimate enforcement tool. The lance could destabilize a star, causing it to expand and consume every planet in its system. It was not just a weapon. It was extinction made real. The Arbiter gave the order. The celestial lance moved into position, aimed directly at Sol, humanity's home star. In 72 hours, the weapon would fire. Earth would burn. Every human colony in the Sol system would be reduced to ash. Humanity would be ended completely and forever. The Council broadcast the ultimatum across every frequency. They expected panic. They expected desperate pleas for mercy. They expected humanity to finally understand their place in the galaxy. Instead, Earth went silent. For 6 hours, no signal came from human space. No response. No negotiation. Nothing. Admiral Chen Wayland stood on the bridge of her command ship, surrounded by holographic displays showing fleet positions across the galaxy. She had prepared for this moment for 3 years. Every sacrifice, every shadow operation, every stolen secret had led to this single point in time. All units report ready, her tactical officer announced. Chen nodded. Begin emergence protocol. Across human space, ships began to appear. Not dozens. Not hundreds, thousands, vessels that had been hidden in asteroid fields, disguised as debris, buried in the ice of distant moons. For 300 years, since the very first day humanity realized the galaxy was not friendly, they had been building in secret. Every colony, every mining operation, every research station had contributed resources to a fleet that no one knew existed. But these ships were not heading toward the Celestial Lance. They were spreading out across the galaxy, each formation targeting a different Council homeworld. Chen's voice echoed across every frequency in the galaxy. Every species heard her words. Every Council member felt a chill run through them. This message is for the Galactic Council, she said. You have activated your final weapon against humanity. You expect us to beg. You expect us to surrender? You were wrong. She paused, letting the silence stretch. We have known about the Celestial Lance for 200 years. We have had 200 years to prepare for this moment. And in that time, we have made a decision that your Council never expected. The holographic displays showed human fleets taking up positions around 17 different worlds. 17 Council species. 17 homeworlds now held in humanity's cold embrace. We are not here to save Earth, Chen continued. Earth was always a sacrifice we were willing to make. Our ancestors survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed billions. We are not afraid of death. We are afraid of nothing. The Arbiter watched the broadcast with growing horror. This was not possible. Humanity had no fleet. They had no weapons capable of threatening Council homeworlds. Where had this armada come from? In 72 hours, you will fire your weapon, Chen said. And in 72 hours and 1 second, we will fire ours. Every homeworld you treasure will face the same fate as Earth. Every species that sat in judgment while our children burned will learn what extinction feels like. She leaned forward, her eyes like black ice. You thought we would beg? You thought we would break. But you forgot something important about humanity. We do not surrender. We do not forgive. And when we are pushed too far, we do not care about our own survival. We only care about making certain our enemies fall with us. The broadcast ended. For hours, the council chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives screamed accusations at each other. The Kreth demanded that the Vortani stand down. The Messian calculated the economic devastation that would follow if 17 homeworlds were destroyed simultaneously. The smaller species, the ones who had always been too weak to speak, began making plans to flee. The Arbiter stood in the center of the chaos, his crystalline body flickering with unstable light. He had not expected this. He had not imagined that any species would choose mutual destruction over survival, but as he studied the human fleet positions, he began to understand something terrible. The humans were not bluffing. They had positioned their ships with perfect precision, each formation carrying weapons that humanity had never revealed. Technologies reverse-engineered from every council vessel they had captured. Payloads designed not to destroy, but to ensure that no council species could ever threaten anyone again. Humanity was not trying to win. They had already accepted their own death. They were simply making certain that if they burned, the council would burn with them. The Arbiter had 72 hours to make a choice. He could fire the Celestial Lance and destroy humanity. Knowing that his own species and every other council member would die moments later, or he could stand down and admit defeat. He looked around the chamber at his fellow council members. For the first time in 12,000 years, he saw fear in their eyes. Not fear of humanity. Fear of him. Fear of what his pride might cost them. The galaxy held its breath, and in the silence, somewhere in the darkness of space, Admiral Chen Weilin sat perfectly still and waited for the Wei Council to decide the fate of every living thing in existence. The Celestial Lance. Powered down 43 hours into the countdown. Not because the Council chose mercy. The Council no longer had the power to choose anything. 5 species had seized their own Council representatives and declared their intention to join humanity if the attack proceeded. The Kreth fleet had positioned itself between the Lance and Sol, announcing that they would die defending humanity rather than serve Vortani masters 1 moment longer. The Michonne had frozen all Council accounts, cutting off the flow of resources that kept the Vortani war machine running. The great alliance that had ruled the Asusa galaxy for 12,000 years was broken beyond repair. The Vortani High Arbiter stood alone in his empty chamber, abandoned by every ally he had ever trusted. His crystalline body had grown dim, the light inside him fading with every passing hour. He had believed himself the master of the galaxy. He had believed that fear would keep order forever. He had been wrong, Admiral. Chen received the stand-down order with no celebration. There was no cheering on her bridge. No relief. Only the quiet acknowledgement that one phase of the war had ended and another was about to begin. Hold positions, she ordered her fleet. The Vortani have stopped the Lance, but this is not over. This will never be over until we have finished what we started. Ambassador Vasquez arrived at the council chamber 3 days later. She walked the same path she had walked years ago, when she had come as a petitioner begging for permission to keep humanity's colonies. Now she walked as a conqueror, surrounded by representatives of every species that had abandoned the council. The obsidian chamber was nearly empty. The floating platforms that had once held 17 ruling species now held only scattered remnants. The Vortani had retreated to their core systems. The council's bureaucracy had collapsed into chaos. Vasquez, stood in the center of the chamber and spoke words that would reshape the galaxy. "The Galactic Council is finished," she said. "Not defeated, finished. There will be no negotiated peace. There will be no new alliance with humanity as an equal member. That dream died with 18 million people on New Harmony. That dream died with my daughter." She paused, letting her words echo through the empty chamber. "Humanity proposes something new. We call it the Compact of Ashes, a galaxy with no supreme authority. No threshold doctrine. No species empowered to decide another's right to exist. Every species will be free to expand, to explore, to grow without asking permission from masters who do not deserve their loyalty." The representatives of the former council species listened in silence. Some felt hope. Some felt fear. Some felt only exhaustion after years of chaos and conflict. "If any species threatens another," Vasquez continued, "they will face not a single enforcement power, but all signatories acting in unison. The days of one species ruling through fear are over. The days of genocide disguised as law are finished. Any species that tries to become the next council will be stopped by everyone else working together." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every representative. "This is not a request. This is not a negotiation. Sign the compact or face humanity alone. We have proven what we are willing to do. We have proven what we are willing to sacrifice. You have seen our patience and our fury. Choose wisely." One by one, species signed the Compact of Ashes. The Kreth were first. Their warriors kneeling before Vasquez, in a gesture of respect they had never offered to any alien before. The Scylla followed, then the Michonne, and dozens of others. Only the Vortani refused. The Arbiter had retreated to his homeworld with the remnants of his fleet. He believed that his ancient power would eventually reassert itself. He believed that the galaxy would tire of freedom and seek the comfort of a master once again. He believed that the Vortani could wait humanity out. He was wrong about that too. 3 years after the signing of the compact, the last Vortani world went silent. No one saw what happened. No ships were detected entering Vortani space. No battles were recorded. No distress signals were sent. One day, the Vortani were there, planning their eventual return to power. The next day, they were simply gone. Investigators found their cities abandoned, their archives corrupted beyond recovery, their history erased from every database in the galaxy. It was as if the Vortani had never existed at all. Humanity never claimed responsibility. Admiral Chen had retired to a quiet colony world and refused to speak to historians. Dr. Okonkwo turned to her research and said only that some questions were better left unanswered. Ambassador Vasquez disappeared entirely. Her final location unknown to anyone except perhaps the shadows that had served her so faithfully. But across the galaxy, species who had trembled under the Council's rule understood the message. They taught it to their children. They wrote it into their histories. They remembered. Humanity had not just survived their extinction. They had not just defeated their enemies. They had made the very concept of the Galactic Council into a warning. A story told to frighten those who might someday dream of ruling others through fear. The threshold had been crossed, and humanity had erased the ones who drew it. Years later, historians discovered a single file in Ambassador Vasquez's abandoned quarters. It contained only one line, written in her own hand. They thought extinction was a punishment. We taught them it was a mirror. The galaxy had learned to fear many things over its long history. Supernovas, black holes, the void between stars. Now they had learned to fear something new. Something that walked on 2 legs and remembered every wrong ever done to it. Something that smiled kindly and built beautiful things and raised children who laughed in the sun. Something that would burn the universe to ash before it would accept. Injustice, they had learned to fear. Humanity, and they would never forget the lesson.